Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this video where I explain to you the menstrual cycle. And this is a concept that's reasonably difficult for me, that I found reasonably difficult to understand when I was learning it in my GCSEs, and I also found difficult for my A levels that I was just studying right now. And once I understood it, I thought I should probably put together a video to explain for people who might be having trouble with it. Alright, so with the menstrual cycle, there's an interaction between the brain and the uterus, and there's also the involvement of the ovary, which is part of the uterus. And you're going to need to know a graph that contains hormone levels and time. So this will be time, and you usually have the ovulation happening somewhere at about the 13th day. So just keep that in mind. Right. So there's four hormones that you need to know. First one is the follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone causes the initial gamete to become a follicle and have an egg cell and whatnot. Then you have luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone causes ovulation. Ovulation, that is the release of the gamete. We'll look at that very soon. Then there's estrogen, which prepares the development of the endometrial lining, and that's all right. And then you have progesterone, which maintains the endometrial lining. So those are the four hormones that you're going to need to know. Starting off, the brain is going to produce FSH. Wait, let me just draw a little gamete here. This little gamete, it's undeveloped, and that's what we need FSH for, to develop it. Right? So the brain releases FSH. FSH, now, because the brain has released FSH, there's going to be a slight increase in FSH level. Now the FSH this gamete is going to develop into, FSH is going to cause the gamete to develop into a primary follicle. Then the primary follicle develops into a secondary follicle, and then secondary follicle develops into a Graafian follicle. Right? And this is the important one. Now, the Graafian follicle has a fully developed egg in it. Graafian follicle. Now, as this is developing, right, it was producing estrogen. Oops. Now, as it was developing, it was producing estrogen. What causes estrogen? Here we are, yellow. Estrogen. Now, estrogen is, as I say here, is the hormone that stimulates and prepares the development. Now, it actually just prepares the endometrial lining. So what you have is this spongy structure called the endometrial lining that forms on the uterus that is rich with blood vessels. Okay, that's the estrogen. Now, estrogen, okay, let's just draw in on the graph the increase in estrogen concentrate, estrogen level. Now, estrogen is going to inhibit FSH. FSH is now going to crash. We have less FSH. Actually, it doesn't really, it stays up for a little longer than this. Right? Something like this, and then it's going to crash. No more FSH. Very good. Now, that's because of an increase in estrogen. Estrogen was increasing. It increases in this weird pattern like this, but it's increasing nonetheless. Now, once estrogen is released, right, now we have an egg here in this Graafian follicle. We need this egg to come out. What causes the egg to come out? It's a luteinizing hormone. So now the brain releases luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone causes this to open up and release the egg out. Oop, there we go. And you form something called the corpus luteum. Now this egg is here, and it'll go yada 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 yada. It might get fertilized, it might not, most likely not, and it will usually just leave in the period. And that's luteinizing hormone. Now this corpus luteum, let's just draw the luteinizing hormone because it happened so soon. Corpus luteum was like very low for a long time, and it spiked really high up. Not it spikes very very high up. Actually, here, yeah, let's draw it even higher. Then there we go. You'll see why it crashes soon. Now, the corpus luteum is going to produce progesterone. Progesterone is a hormone that maintains the lining. Now, estrogen has built it for us, so it's going to just maintain it for us. Now, progesterone. Okay. Now, progesterone is going to inhibit FSH and inhibit LH. That's why LH crashed. Now, throughout the entire ovulation, throughout the rest of the cycle, LH would stay low. Estrogen is going to kind of reduce. It's not inhibited, but it will reduce. So here we are. Okay, and then progesterone, like I said, was very low initially, just like this, and then when LH spiked, progesterone spiked. It began to spike anyway. Then it would be really high up and then decrease because it's decreasing because fertilization didn't take place. So then this egg would just go and go and go and go and just leave. So that's it. So it's gonna leave with this endometrial lining, and then that's no more. Oops. I mean the uterus is there, but then the endometrial lining leaves. Here we are. That's it. It's relatively simple. Just that there's many hormones involved, and the interactions can get a little complicated. So just remember first, there's FSH released, FSH, which causes the release of estrogen. Estrogen causes endometrial lining. Estrogen causes the lining to develop. Then the development of the lining, and then there's luteinizing hormone released. Luteinizing hormone was green here. Luteinizing hormone causes ovulation. Then once that was all done, we had progesterone being released. Progesterone cancels luteinizing hormone, cancels FSH, and kinda reduces estrogen, but doesn't. Because estrogen is also produced by the corpus luteum, right? So here we are. There you go. Hope that helped.